So, before actually starting a real project, actually my project, which the reason I am learning all these Tizen UI components and the whole Tizen. So before starting the actual components, this is possibly the last experimental mini project, which I created. So I was thinking how to create a project with Tizen Studio, completely a new one. So far, I've already created a couple of projects from the samples. So let's check out what are available. So when you want to start a new project, you have two options: samples or template. When I go into the template, this is typically what you'd expect, maybe a variable. Let's select this version, and then when you come to this place, you have the option only basic, web input, and widget, but there is no tau, this Tizen advanced UI package. Let's go back. Maybe that was because I picked the, let's start with a 5.5 and the basic add-on, basic UI, and widget. That's all. When I select the mobile, what other options do I have? I have exactly the same. So the only possibility practically is to select the sample. And this is what I suggest. Just simply select the sample, whichever version, wearable or mobile, and then select UI, and then select tau UI components. Actually, this is the only way you can initialize a project with Tizen Studio, which includes all the components. So when you have your project initialized from this sample, then of course you have the option to modify, to delete unwanted parts, or just keep everything as is and then start modifying accordingly. So this was exactly the way I created my project here, and that was the tau basic wearable. And here is the application I have created. Actually, it is not an application, just an experimenting. That is, my application is a typical business application which has lists, buttons, and sometimes fields, choices where the user typically enter some limited amount of data, select choices. For example, the sample application which I'm going to implement is to start an operation uh, dedicated or given a job, a task for a worker or a service field person, and then when this job is started, a kind of stopwatch, and then at the end of the process, he or she stops the running watch and then enter some additional information, quality data, or some material consumption pieces of data, or anything like that. So this is really a simple application. It sounds simple, but it's that important for a number of businesses. and it should work very robust. It cannot crash, so that's why it should be easy to execute and as much as possible. So here in this arena, uh, functionality is a lot more important than fancy looking UIs. Anyhow, uh, so buttons, buttons, buttons. Typically, a user interface, which I'm talking about, has one, two, or three buttons on a page. And in Tizen, variable, what is the recommendation when you have a button with more, uh, a page with more than one button, then what it does, this is the sample application, it just displays the first one, the go, and the other two are displayed in this pop-up page. And then you have a couple of functions. I just included them directly into this page. At the same time, I also experimenting with Rotary. So by default, the contents, at least in this case, this is the content, sorry. So this UI content, which today currently consists of 5 lines, but this is enough, big enough for a watch screen. So it should be scrollable, and that's what you should do, or I have to do, to enable the rotary events linked to the first element child of the target. And the target here is, of course, the page, the first child element of the child. And then I have here, this is an interesting concept from Tau, and it is originally invented by the makers of jQuery Mobile, a brilliant user interface CSS library mobile. It's specifically made for mobile application, but the project practically was abandoned, that is cancelled in 2014. That was the last release of the jQuery mobile, but Tau is still under development by the Samsung team in Poland. And this is again here in this page. I also linked the Rotary Bezel to the contents of this page. But this is only a single button application. So this is the style. It works, and one important thing is that how to trigger a from this multi-page. The first one is the go. This is link an H class, just a direct link to open the button page, this page, which is included in the same HTML document. Actually, it's fancily, it is also called page. Anyhow, that's why let's call it HTML document. So the collocated pages in a HTML document. And the other two, interesting that these are not displayed on the wearable, but they are displayed on the regular mobile phone profile. So the same source code could be used on the mobile phone either. However, how then we link, open the page, what action can we do? This is doable, at least this is the only thing I was able to find, that we have here a event listener, and then when the target is a UI selector indicator, this is coming from, and then it closes the pop-up screen, and then if the target inner text matches show. Really arcane, but what can I do? Maybe there are better possibility, because this is actually what can be done. I have anyway much nicer ideas later. I will introduce them, but in that case, it we use the change page tau function, where we get the element button by page by ID, and then this change page uh, takes this HTML element and then opens this as if it were a new page. Yeah, and then back is again button widget more pages. So what is visible here, that I am not doing any fancy CSS uh, additions, and I definitely wouldn't recommend to do so. We have, so in the project we have this CSS, but honestly I don't even dare to touch them. These are prepared, seems to be quite heavy and complex. No way I'm going to touch them. So this CSS files available here too, and also available under the libs too, wearable, the theme, maybe the default theme, images, and then a lot of CSS files are available under these pages. So that's why it is important that you initialize your project with the way I have shown. So after this introduction, let's experiment how this application works. I come to Tizen Studio and then just start on the emulator. Yesterday night I gave it a try on my watch and it worked perfectly fine. So the first thing is to show that the bezel works with scrolling the text. So it's one of the reasons we love Galaxy Watch application development, because we have this fancy new fun feature. So this is the way the Tau, what to say, concepts or design UI concepts work. You have one button always here, which is a floating button. Of course, scrolling works this way too. And then you also have these three dots where you can include uh, icons. And here the bezel works too. And then the way it is executed, here of course you can have any number of options. Say when you have this option, just press here, which opens the bottom page, which has only one button. And then this is a floating button, so it covers of course the bottom part. So honestly I prefer to have a space for two buttons, and I think these buttons are too big, but anyhow, so this is the default works on the application. I press button, it comes back, and of course the status remain because we are located in the same environment, and these pages are just opened and hidden. So these are just hiding and popping or showing these elements, but the state is always the same. So that's it, how it works. And let's open the same application with the uh, simulator. With the simulator, as seen here, we have the three nice buttons. Scrolling works fine. There is a difference, interestingly, that the header section is not scrolling off the screen in this version. On the watch, it scrolls off, of course, that's completely fine. And here I just press go. I'm in a button. So everything works fine on the simulator too. And then the other option is when we deploy to see how it works in I have created a npm job for http tau basic w npx http server, and then I just open. So let's start this npm run http tau basic, and then let's see how it starts. It downloads the http server daemon, and then it opens right away an application. Let's simulate as if it were a mobile phone. Yep, it's really rudimentary, but actually this is how, in my opinion, an industrial business application should look in our environment. No fancy stuff, just be very intuitive and really keep the application on the focus. The implementation must be really robust and easy to use. So I press go, it jumps, and fast, importantly. So, yep, and go back. Of course, back button works here too. And then next works too. Yes, all the three works excellently. So again, this is a single page application. That is uh, all of the state remains the same. So that's why always keep this is perfectly fine. So business applications, at least in this part, are simple as for the user interface communication, but the business logic behind them is um, is massive and important. So that was for today, my friends.